All right, everybody. Welcome to another deep dive. Today we're going down a road that I think most of us would rather avoid.
Okay.
We're talking about families,
Oh boy.
not the warm and fuzzy kind you see on those holiday greeting cards, though.
Oh.
We're talking about families behaving badly,
Uh-huh.
from shocking neglect to crimes so twisted they'd make Tony Soprano blush.
Yeah.
We're diving deep into the heart of family dysfunction.
Well, it's a fascinating and often uncomfortable journey,
Right.
but it's important to remember these stories.
Yeah.
As shocking as they may be, they do reflect a reality that exists.
Oh, absolutely. And that's what this deep dive is all about, right?
That's right.
I mean, we've got a stack of cases, each one more unbelievable than the last.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to unpack the details, analyze the motivations,
Right.
try to make sense of the senseless.
Yeah.
And by the end of this, you just might start appreciating those awkward family dinners a little bit more.
At least you'll have a better appreciation for setting boundaries.
Exactly. Now, let's start with a case that is as heartbreaking as it is infuriating.
Okay.
Okay, this one takes us to Ohio, where a mother is facing the consequences of a truly horrifying form of neglect.
All right.
Her 4-year-old daughter, Harmony, tragically died from untreated diabetes.
Oh.
And the details of her short life are just gut-wrenching.
Yeah, I can imagine.
What's particularly disturbing about this case is the level of ignorance displayed by the parents.
Well, yeah, I mean, Harmony wasn't just deprived of proper medical care. She was subjected to a diet that I can only describe as barbaric.
I'm talking about a steady stream of Mountain Dew and baby formula.
Oh, wow.
That's what this little girl is living on.
That's terrible.
It's almost impossible to fathom, isn't it?
It really is. And the impact of this horrific diet was evident.
Right.
Harmony's teeth were severely rotted,
Yeah.
a clear indication of the profound neglect she endured.
And sadly, this wasn't an isolated incident.
Oh, really?
One of the mother's sons from a previous relationship said that his younger brother had also suffered from untreated diabetes, years earlier ending up in a coma
Oh, gosh.
after being lethargic for over 36 hours.
That's awful.
This pattern of neglect raises serious questions about the parents' understanding of basic childcare
Mm-hmm.
and their ability to provide a safe and nurturing environment.
It really does.
Well, it's just unimaginable the father is still awaiting sentencing.
Okay.
But this case really makes you think, how can we as a society do better to detect and prevent these kinds of tragedies?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
This case really highlights the need for greater awareness about child neglect,
Yeah.
particularly in cases where parents may be struggling with their own challenges.
Mm.
It also underscores the importance of robust social services
Yeah.
and community support systems that can intervene before it's too late.
It's a sobering reminder that even within the supposed safety of a family, unimaginable horrors can occur.
Yeah, that's true.
Our next case takes us to Florida, where the victim isn't a child, but an elderly woman subjected to abuse by her own daughter.
It's a stark reminder that vulnerability can exist at any age,
Right.
and that the bonds of family don't always equate to protection.
In this case, a 68-year-old woman was arrested for abusing her 96-year-old mother.
Goodness.
The details are truly disturbing. The elderly victim was found with multiple bruises
Oh, yeah.
and was reportedly being over-medicated with a powerful sedative.
Wow. What's particularly striking about this case is the evidence that was uncovered.
Okay.
A tenant living in the house not only witnessed the abuse, but also managed to capture a chilling confession on his cell phone.
Oh, wow.
He recorded the daughter admitting to physically striking her mother.
Oh, my goodness.
That's pretty damning evidence.
You would think so, right?
Yeah.
But here's where things get really frustrating.
Okay.
The daughter was released on a shockingly low bond,
Really?
a mere $15,000.
Wow.
It's hard not to feel outraged by that.
It does raise questions about whether the justice system adequately values the safety and well-being of our elderly population. Would the bond have been so low if the victim had been a child?
Right.
It's a valid question to ask.
Absolutely. It makes you wonder about societal perceptions of elder abuse.
Right.
And whether we're doing enough to protect this vulnerable population.
It's certainly a conversation we need to be having as a society.
Yeah.
We need to recognize that elder abuse is a serious crime, and it needs to be treated as such by the legal system.
Okay, let's take a slight detour from these heavier cases.
Right.
Though this next one is still pretty disturbing in its own right.
Okay.
Remember that guy, the bad breath rapist?
Think so vaguely.
After 16 years on the run, Justice has finally caught up with him.
It's a fascinating case that really highlights the lengths some people will go to evade capture
Right.
and the ripple effects of their actions on those around them.
In 2005, this guy, Tonkat Lee, was convicted in Massachusetts for kidnapping and raping a coworker.
Mm-hmm.
The victim's description of his bad breath, I know it's strange,
Yeah.
but it's what stuck with her, actually helped the police identify and arrest him.
Wow.
But before he could be sentenced, he vanished.
And for 16 years, he managed to stay off the radar.
That's crazy.
Built a whole new life in California.
Wow.
Even living with a woman who had absolutely no idea about his past.
Can you imagine finding out the person you've been sharing your life with is a convicted rapist?
Yeah.
The shock and betrayal must have been unimaginable.
It really speaks to the psychological impact,
Right.
not just on the initial victim, but also on those who unknowingly get drawn into the perpetrator's web of deceit.
Now let's dive into a case that is as heartbreaking as it is baffling.
Okay.
This one takes us to Georgia, where a woman named Brianna Winston vanished without a trace.
Right.
Suspicion quickly fell on her boyfriend, Mayle Edwards.
Hmm.
But the story is far more twisted than a simple missing persons case.
This case is a prime example of how domestic violence can escalate into something far more sinister,
Right.
and how the secrets we keep can have devastating consequences.
Brianna's family knew something was terribly wrong when they learned that Mayle had cleaned out her apartment.
Really?
It reeked of bleach,
Oh, wow.
and Brianna had stopped showing up for work.
Those are red flags that any family member would find alarming. And the investigation quickly revealed a tangled web of relationships and deceit that went far deeper than anyone could have imagined.
It turns out that just a few months before Brianna disappeared,
Okay.
Mayle had secretly married another woman.
What?
And to make matters even more complicated, this other woman was also named Brianna.
Talk about adding fuel to the fire.
Yeah.
The revelation of this secret marriage raised a lot of questions about Mayle's motives
Right.
and whether he was capable of harming Brianna in a fit of jealous rage.
And as if this whole situation couldn't get any more convoluted,
Wow.
Mayle's new wife, Brianna number 2, was arrested for making false statements to the police.
It seemed like everyone involved was trying to hide something.
Yeah.
Which only intensified the suspicions surrounding Mayle's potential involvement in Brianna's disappearance.
Then a bombshell dropped. An informant, hoping for leniency, came forward with a chilling account of what really happened to Brianna.
The informant's story painted a gruesome picture of a crime fueled by jealousy rage and a desperate attempt to cover up the evidence.
According to the informant, after Brianna confronted Mayle about his secret marriage, a heated argument ensued.
Uh-huh.
And in a moment of fury, he allegedly choked her to death.
It's a tragic reminder of how quickly a domestic dispute can turn deadly,
Right.
especially in situations where there's a history of violence or emotional instability.
But the horror doesn't end there, according to the informant.
Right.
Mayle then enlisted the help of his family to dispose of Brianna's body.
Oh my gosh.
They burned her remains in a barrel, crushed her bones, and scattered the ashes along Interstate 40 and in a remote cemetery.
The level of brutality and premeditation involved is staggering.
It is.
It speaks to a level of desperation and a callous disregard for human life that's truly chilling.
And to make matters worse, Mayle's mother and brother were also arrested for their alleged roles in this horrific cover-up.
This case is a heartbreaking example of how family loyalty can be twisted and manipulated to conceal the most heinous acts.
Yeah.
It forces us to ask, where do we draw the line between supporting our loved ones and becoming complicit in their crimes?
It's a tough question, and one that we'll be exploring further as we delve deeper into these unsettling family sagas. Now let's shift gears to a case that takes us into the darkest recesses of family violence.
Okay.
In Minnesota, a man named Jack Ball stands accused of a truly unimaginable crime against his own pregnant sister, Bethany.
This case is particularly disturbing because of the sheer brutality involved and the apparent lack of remorse displayed by the perpetrator.
Yeah.
It's a stark reminder that even within the bonds of family, the potential for darkness and violence can lurk.
Bethany's mother made the horrifying discovery when she went to Jack's house after her daughter failed to return home from a family dinner. What she found was a scene that could have been ripped from a horror movie.
Blood was everywhere. A saw, a hatchet, and knives were scattered throughout the house,
Oh my God.
painting a grim picture of the violence that had unfolded.
And to add to the horror, body parts were found scattered around the neighborhood, including one left on a neighbor's doorstep.
The level of brutality displayed is simply unimaginable.
Yeah.
It's difficult to fathom the rage and detachment that would drive someone to commit such an act,
Right.
especially against their own flesh and blood.
When the police finally apprehended Jack, he had a self-inflicted knife wound,
Oh, wow.
suggesting a possible suicide attempt.
Okay.
But perhaps the most chilling aspect of this case lies in what was discovered in his personal journals.
Jack's writings revealed a disturbing rationale for his actions.
Mhm.
He expressed anger towards his sister for being pregnant, stating that she was no longer innocent.
It's a statement that sends chills down your spine,
Right.
offering a glimpse into his twisted mindset, and raising a whole host of unsettling questions about his motivations.
Mm-hmm.
Was this a crime fueled by some sort of religious extremism?
Right.
Or was there something even more profoundly disturbed at play?
It's impossible to say for certain, but it's clear that Jack's actions stemmed from a deeply troubled and distorted worldview.
Yeah.
This case underscores the critical importance of recognizing and addressing mental health issues before they escalate into violence, especially within families where the stakes are so incredibly high.
It's a stark reminder that sometimes the greatest danger can lurk within the walls of our own homes,
Yeah,
disguised beneath the veneer of family ties.
that's true.
Now, before we wrap up this first part of our deep dive,
Okay.
let's turn our attention to a case that captivated the nation,
Right.
the Adelson family saga.
Yeah, I remember that one.
If you recall, Charlie Adelson, a scion of a wealthy and influential family,
Yeah?
was convicted of orchestrating the hit on his brother-in-law, Dan Markle, a respected law professor.
This case was a whirlwind of twists and turns, exposing a world of privilege power and a family seemingly operating above the law.
Right.
Charlie's defense team tried to paint a picture of extortion,
Yeah.
claiming that he was being threatened by the Latin Kings gang. But in the end, the jury saw through the facade and found him guilty.
But the story doesn't end there in a shocking turn of events. Charlie's mother, Donna Adelson, was recently arrested at the airport with a one-way ticket to Vietnam.
Wow.
It turns out she had been discussing escape plans with Charlie during recorded jailhouse phone calls.
It's a stunning development that further unravels this already captivating saga.
Yeah.
It highlights how even the most carefully constructed facades of power and control can crumble when confronted with the weight of justice.
Right.
And it makes you wonder, what else is this family capable of?
And the plot thickens even further to protect him from potential retaliation. Charlie has been transferred to a high-security prison in South Dakota.
Really?
Why? Because it's believed that the Latin Kings have put a hit out on him.
It's a fascinating twist that adds another layer of complexity to this already tangled web. It raises questions about the veracity of Charlie's extortion claims
Right.
and the true nature of his relationship with this dangerous gang.
And as if all that wasn't enough, there's now a growing suspicion surrounding Charlie's sister Wendy,
Oh, really?
who was Dan Markle's ex-wife.
Okay.
Some believe she may have played a role in the murder plot,
Interesting.
and investigators are digging deeper into her potential involvement.
Wendy's role, if any, in this whole affair remains a tantalizing mystery.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see how the investigation unfolds and whether she ultimately faces any charges.
Well, folks, we've covered a lot of ground in this first part of our deep dive.
We have.
We've explored the dark underbelly of family dynamics,
Yeah.
from shocking neglect to cold-blooded murder.
Yeah.
We've seen how secrets and lies can poison even the closest of bonds, and how loyalty can be twisted into complicity.
These cases, as disturbing as they are, serve as stark reminders that family relationships are complex and multifaceted.
Right.
They can be a source of immense love and support, but they can also harbor darkness and danger.
Yeah.
It's crucial to be aware of these complexities and to approach family dynamics with a healthy dose of understanding, communication, and a willingness to seek help when needed.
And on that note, we're going to take a quick break, but don't go anywhere. We'll be right back to delve deeper into these cases and uncover even more shocking details about the families that made headlines for all the wrong reasons.
Okay, I'll be here.
If you're enjoying this deep dive, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the next installment.
I'm looking forward to it.
Welcome back to the deep dive. Before the break, we were talking about this Adelson family saga.
Yeah.
All those shocking twists that just keep coming out, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Wealthy family, a murder for hire plot. Now the matriarch's caught trying to flee the country.
I know.
It's like something straight out of a true crime novel.
It really is a case that keeps you on the edge of your seat.
Yeah, and we're not even done yet.
Right.
Remember, we're still waiting to see if Charlie's sister Wendy
Right.
is going to be implicated in this whole murder plot.
Yeah, her potential involvement adds a whole other layer of intrigue to this family drama.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's crazy. But for now, let's shift gears a little bit,
Okay.
revisit a case we touched on earlier,
All right.
the one with the rather unusual nickname, the Bad Breath Rapist.
Ah, yes. Tunkit Lee. That's a name that's hard to forget.
Yeah, and the details of his crimes are equally disturbing.
Yeah.
Back in 2005, he was convicted of kidnapping and raping a coworker in Massachusetts.
Right.
And, the victim's description of his bad breath actually played a key role in his identification and arrest.
I remember that.
Talk about a memorable detail.
Yeah.
But before he could be sentenced, Lee skipped town
He did.
and managed to stay off the radar for an incredible 16 years.
It's really a testament to his ability to blend in and create a false identity. He built a new life in California, even lived with a woman who had absolutely no clue about his past.
It's mind-blowing, isn't it?
It really is.
I mean, to think that someone could live a double life for so long, deceiving those closest to them,
Yeah.
makes you wonder about the psychology of someone like that.
But that's what I find so fascinating about these cases,
Yeah.
What drives someone to commit such heinous acts?
Right.
And how do they manage to compartmentalize their lives, keeping their true nature hidden?
And in Lee's case, there's no doubt he was a master manipulator.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he was able to convince this woman that he was someone he wasn't.
Right.
And the betrayal she must have felt when his true identity was revealed is just heartbreaking.
It really is. It's a stark reminder that you can never truly know everything about the people you let into your life,
Right.
even those you think you know best.
Okay, let's move on to a case that sadly illustrates the darker side of romantic relationships and the devastating consequences of unchecked jealousy and rage. We're going back to Georgia, where Brianna Winston disappeared under mysterious circumstances.
This case is a tragic example of how domestic violence can escalate into something far more sinister,
Yeah,
and how the secrets that we keep can unravel our lives
yeah.
and the lives of the people around us.
Brianna's relationship with her boyfriend, Male Edwards, was tumultuous, to say the least. There was a history of arguments,
Yeah.
and a protective order had been filed against him just a few months before she went missing.
Protective orders can be a lifeline for victims of domestic abuse, but sadly, they're not always enough to prevent further violence.
Right, and in Brianna's case, it seems that the order did little to deter Male.
It's awful.
Adding to the complexity of the situation, it was revealed that Male had secretly married another woman,
Oh, wow.
also named Brianna.
Talk about a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, just a few months before Brianna Winston vanished.
This secret marriage introduced a whole new level of intrigue to the case.
Right.
And raised serious questions about Male's motives.
Hmm.
Was he capable of harming Brianna out of jealousy or a desire to keep his double life a secret?
The plot thickened when Male's new wife, Brianna number 2, was arrested for making false statements to the police.
It seemed like everyone involved was trying to hide something,
Right.
which only fueled suspicion around Male.
Yeah, and then a bombshell dropped.
What happened?
An informant seeking a deal in exchange for his testimony came forward
Okay.
with a chilling account of what really happened to Brianna.
The informant's story painted a gruesome picture of a crime fueled by jealousy rage
Yeah.
and a desperate attempt to cover up the evidence.
According to this informant, after Brianna confronted Male about his secret marriage, a heated argument erupted.
Okay.
And in a fit of rage, Male allegedly choked her to death.
It's a horrifying scenario, and it really highlights how quickly a domestic dispute can turn deadly,
Yeah.
especially when there's a history of violence or emotional instability.
But the horror doesn't stop there, according to the informant. Male then enlisted the help of his family to dispose of Brianna's body.
Oh, my.
They burned her remains in a barrel, crushed her bones, and scattered the ashes along a highway and in a remote cemetery.
The level of brutality and premeditation involved is just staggering.
It speaks to a complete lack of remorse
Right.
and a chilling disregard for human life.
And to make matters even worse, Male's mother and brother were also arrested for their alleged roles in this horrific cover-up.
It's a truly heartbreaking case.
It is.
And it illustrates how family loyalty can be twisted and manipulated to conceal the most heinous acts.
Yeah, it forces us to ask ourselves,
Yeah.
where does our responsibility to our family end and our obligation to justice begin?
Now let's shift gears to a case that takes us to the heart of family violence.
Okay.
In Minnesota, Jack Ball stands accused of a truly unimaginable crime against his own sister Bethany,
Right.
who was pregnant at the time of her death.
This case is particularly disturbing because of the sheer brutality involved
Yeah.
and the seemingly cold-blooded nature of the crime.
Right. It challenges our understanding of family bonds.
It does.
Forces us to confront the dark reality
Yeah.
that sometimes the people closest to us can be capable of the most horrific acts.
That's true.
The details of this case are not for the faint of heart.
I can imagine.
Bethany's mother made the horrifying discovery when she went to Jack's house after her daughter failed to return home from a family dinner.
Oh, no.
What she found was a scene that could have come straight out of a nightmare.
The crime scene was gruesome.
Yeah.
Blood was everywhere, and a saw, a hatchet, and knives were scattered around the house,
Oh my goodness.
painting a horrifying picture of the violence that had taken place.
Adding to the horror, body parts were found scattered around the neighborhood,
Oh, gosh.
including one left on a neighbor's doorstep.
That's awful.
I mean, it's a level of depravity that's hard to fathom.
The level of brutality displayed is simply unimaginable.
Yeah.
It's difficult to comprehend the rage and detachment that would drive someone to commit such an act, especially against a member of their own family.
When the police finally apprehended Jack, he had a self-inflicted knife wound,
Really?
suggesting a possible suicide attempt.
Wow. But perhaps the most chilling aspect of this case lies in what was discovered in his personal journals.
His writings offered a disturbing glimpse into his mindset and a
Right.
twisted rationale for his actions.
He expressed anger toward his sister for being pregnant, claiming that she was no longer innocent.
I mean, it's a statement that sends chills down your spine,
It does.
raises so many questions about his motivations.
Right. Was this a crime fueled by some sort of religious extremism?
Yeah.
Or was there something even more profoundly disturbed at play?
It's impossible to say for certain, but it's clear that Jack's actions were driven by a deeply troubled and distorted worldview.
Yeah, this case underscores the critical importance of recognizing and addressing mental health issues before they escalate into violence,
Right.
especially within families where the stakes are so incredibly high.
It's a stark reminder that sometimes the greatest danger can lurk within the walls of our own homes,
It's
disguised beneath the veneer of family ties. Welcome back to the Deep Dive. I know we've been exploring some pretty dark and disturbing cases, and it can be a lot to process.
Yeah, I can.
But these stories, as unsettling as they are, offer a glimpse into the complexities of human behavior,
Right.
especially within the supposedly safe haven of family.
Absolutely. And while these cases, represent extreme examples of family dysfunction,
Right.
they do highlight the importance of understanding the underlying factors that can contribute to such tragedies.
Exactly. So before we wrap up this deep dive, let's circle back to the Adelson family.
Okay.
If you recall, Charlie Adelson was convicted of orchestrating the hit on his brother-in-law, Dan Markle,
Uh-huh.
and his mother was recently arrested trying to flee the country. It's a story that just keeps getting more bizarre.
What's fascinating about this case is the glimpse it offers into the world of wealth and privilege.
Yeah.
The Adelson family, they seem to believe they were above the law,
Right.
that their money and influence could shield them from consequences.
And for a while, it seemed like they might get away with it.
It did.
But in the end, the truth came out,
Yeah.
and justice prevailed, at least to some extent.
To some extent, yeah.
Charlie's behind bars, his mother's facing charges, and the investigation continues
Right.
with the possibility of more family members being implicated.
It's a powerful reminder that no one is above the law, regardless of their wealth or social standing.
Right.
And it also speaks to the corrosive nature of secrets and lies.
Mm.
The Adelson family's web of deceit ultimately unraveled and led to their downfall.
Yeah, it's a classic case of hubris and the consequences of believing you can manipulate the system.
Right.
But let's be honest, these kinds of stories aren't just about individual families behaving badly.
No, they're not.
They reflect larger societal issues too.
Absolutely. We need to talk more openly about things like domestic violence, child neglect, and elder abuse.
Right.
We need to recognize the warning signs and intervene early. We need to provide better support systems for families who are struggling.
Couldn't agree more. It's not enough to just shake our heads and say, how could someone do such a thing?
Exactly.
We need to look deeper, understand the root causes, and work to prevent these tragedies from happening in the first place.
And sometimes prevention means having difficult conversations,
yeah.
setting boundaries, and seeking help when we need it.
Right. Family can be a source of incredible love and support.
Yes.
But it's important to remember that healthy relationships require honesty, respect, and a willingness to address problems head on.
Well said. And that brings us to the end of our deep dive into these unsettling family sagas. We've covered a lot of ground, explored the dark side of human nature, and grappled with some tough questions.
Hopefully these stories have sparked some important conversations
I hope so.
and maybe even inspired some of you to take a closer look at your own family dynamics.
Yeah, if there's one thing we can take away from all of this, it's that family isn't always about blood ties.
Right.
It's about the connections we make, the support we offer, and the love we share.
And sometimes protecting our loved ones means holding them accountable for their actions,
Absolutely.
no matter how difficult that may be.
Well said. And remember, there are resources available for those who are struggling with family issues.
That's right.
Don't be afraid to reach out for help.
And as always, thank you for joining us on The Deep Dive. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss our next exploration into the fascinating and sometimes disturbing realities of the human experience.